Combat complexity and how it affects players. One thing we often hear is that there's a high level of complexity in WoW's class and combat design. True. Classes have a lot of abilities to manage, and it can be tough to find comfortable keybinds for them. True. During combat, there are many buffs and debuffs to keep track of. True. Which is critical to playing well and can require intense concentration. True. Players trying out new specs also report that the talent trees can be intimidating. Kind of true. Even after learning the purpose of each talent, there are still subtle interactions that aren't obvious. True. And players often feel like they do not understand what bonuses and combinations are critical to their success. True. The complexity of the combat impacts all types of players in different ways, and everyone faces barriers. True. There are challenges for new players trying to learn the ropes for the first time, as well as returning players who are trying to catch up. True. Going further, we understand these challenges make it harder to recommend WoW to friends. Maybe true. Players sometimes feel that their inexperienced friends yeah, I know how that goes. Need a robust guide on how to play. Yeah, I definitely know how that goes. Very true. Manage add-ons and more to even get started. Yep, very true. Experienced players who are eager to improve their play, so they tackle more challenging raid difficulties, often don't even know where to begin to get better. Without reading a guide, they might miss a subtle aspect of maximizing their performance. We have heard feedback from skilled players who tell us they have shelved some of their favorite characters because those characters' gameplay is more mechanically demanding than they have interest in. Expert players can spend hours configuring and maintaining add-ons to display information that needed to play at top level. Okay, I think this is all true. These are all true things, but what you take from this could vary. What I mean by that is, you could make the argument that the reason WoW is so successful is because they have complex rotations to try to figure out and master. So you could make the argument that this is all true and good, or you could make the argument this is all true and bad. I don't know. I think I'm more on the side of things where I'm pretty I don't want to say optimistic, but like excited to see how the whole no add-on thing plays out, and a lot more of this stuff being baseline. Can Blizzard screw it up? Oh yeah, they can screw it up. Like it has, like it's a pretty tough job. They have to do it pretty well. If they don't do it well, it could be really bad. If they don't do it well, hopefully they'll just go back and be like, okay, no, you can use let's just go back to how things were. It's pretty risky, I'm not gonna lie. It's a massive change, so we'll see. I don't know, we'll see how it plays out. Making WoW more approachable. Okay, so with Midnight, we aim to make gameplay clearer and easier to understand. So like, this is good from a content perspective. Like when you play a game, you want people to understand what's happening. When you're playing like Fortnite or chess or like Roblox or like League, like a lot of the times you can, or Counter-Strike, like a player might not even play the game, but they can understand all of those games kind of at a surface level. But when you watch WoW for the first time, if you don't play, like it is impossible to tell what's going on. So I think this is warranted, right? They're trying to make it just easier to watch, easier to play, easier to hop in. So the path improvement's more apparent. Yeah. We're updating every class spec with an eye towards approachability by reducing complexity and making gameplay more intuitive. So this is, I think, where people might push back a bit and say like, whoa, you're gonna make the game easier by reducing complexity. Is this a good thing? I think this is a fair thing to be speculative of. I think it's a fair thing to be like, is this a good thing? I think it could be a good thing. It could also be a bad thing. I actually love simplicity. I love the philosophy of reducing as much as possible that doesn't need to be there. I actually made an add-on at one point called Xaryu. I discontinued it because the game is just completely different than it used to be. What Xaryu designed to do was to simplify the user interface for an optimal PvP experience. So when I built this, it was literally for removing things on the screen that aren't essential, right? Removing non-essential ones, right? It's like just getting rid of stuff that doesn't need to be there so you can look at the screen in a more simplistic way. It's a really good book from Craig McCowan called Essentialism that I talk about on the stream a lot. I think it actually might be back there on the table somewhere. And it talks about that, reducing the non-essential, getting rid of it, man. Bruce Lee, same type of thing, right? It's like, if it doesn't need to be there, let's get rid of it so we can have a more minimalistic, more Accessible user interface. So I like the philosophy, but it's a very dangerous one if you go too far. And what I mean by that is removing things that make the class, removing the class identity, removing the class feel in aim of making it more accessible or less complex. So it's a fine line. You want to remove the unessential, keyword unessential. You have to keep the things that are core to the class design. So it's a tricky thing to do, but if they do it right, I think it's good. If they do it wrong, I think it's bad. Cool, let's keep moving. We're beginning by focusing on what makes each spec unique and designing gameplay that matches their theme, so your character's personality and style are reflected in how you play. Our goal is the most appealing, visible elements of your spec to be what matter most in gameplay. That often means managing resources, tracking a few buffs and debuffs, and using ability charges strategically, and responding to important triggered effects known as procs. Right, okay. I've also made the claim in the past, good PvP, not PvE, but PvP is generally created with simplistic combat designs. Let's get some examples. League of Legends, 4 buttons that do damage. Summoners, I guess, ignite. If you want to count summoners, you could, but like 4 buttons that do damage. Very simple class design. Incredibly good PvP game because the combat itself is simplistic, but the game is not. There's a lot more going on. Your positioning matters. Your CS matters. Your macro matters. The team fights, I mean, there's still 5 people with a bunch of different champs, right? Dodging matters. Skill shots matter. So 4 buttons, very complex, right? Simplicity makes good PvP. That's been my claim in the past. I noticed this a few years ago when I was dabbling in some other games. Counter-Strike, great example. Simplistic. You have a shoot button and a grenade button. Simple, but very complex. Very complex. My claim is that simple rotations make for great PvP. Now, PvE, not necessarily the same. PvE, you could make the argument that the opposite's true. Like complex rotations make for good PvE, and most of WoW is PvEers. PvP is a minigame. So should you design the game for PvP? Probably not. Realistically, probably not. I love PvP, but probably not. So PvE is kind of like the crux of it. The complexity aspect, reducing the complexity, when that could actually be like the crux of what makes the game in the aspect of the game that most of the players play, very risky. Very risky. See if they can pull it off. See if they can pull it off. Cali Cal, 99 month sub. Chip, Twitch Prime and Bone, Twitch Prime and Kubaka, Twitch Prime and Hype Train close. Let's go, boys. We want to ensure players have all the necessity information play with clearly visible prompts and indicators in the UI. This can include changing the design of complex abilities or reducing the number of buffs that can be active so it's easier to pick out the most essential information on the cooldown manager. I mean, generally, if they do this right, I think this is fantastic. If you're going to get one shot by something, it should tell you. Like, or not tell you, but like it should be somewhat clear that this thing is scary. It shouldn't just be like a normal cast bar, right? Like you should have information on the screen in the game without having to go to a third-party add-on. Sure. We're also reviewing the amount of concentration or cognitive load required to play each spec. This I could see players having some pushback on, especially if you're like a top-end player or like a mythic level player, high-end player. It's like you enjoy the cognitive load. That's why you play the game. It's nice to have a lot to think about at the same time. That's what keeps it enjoyable. So I could see some pushback here. Cognitive load encompasses tasks such as keeping tracks of auras, parsing conditions to choose the most effective ability in a given moment, or remembering long sequences of abilities. Yeah, players like this. A lot of players like this. Some specs will demand more cognitive load than others by design. Yeah, definitely. Mages are definitely way harder than the rest. Keeping track of damage over time effects requires concentration, but it's also a big part of the appeal of specs like Affliction, Feral, and Assassination. However, we're reviewing all these specs where areas of concentration demands are excessive, unclear, or don't deserve enjoyable gameplay. Yeah, these specs are probably way easier. I think they mean what they mean is arcane mages are incredibly difficult, but some players can handle them and some players can't. Ultimately, our goal is that once every specs has all its new talent points, hero points, and apex points, it has what we feel is a manageable, fun, and appropriately challenging level of complexity. Okay, so to be honest, I'm really excited for this. I'm very nervous that they screw it up, but I'm like, if they pull it off, I think it would actually make WoW way better. I think it would make PvP way better, which has me kind of excited. But I'm a little nervous that it could actually kind of ruin PvE. I'm a little nervous from the PvE side of things because a lot of players enjoy this. Examples of class approachability changes. So using abilities without needing add-ons, abilities without meaningful gameplay. Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, if it's not meaningful and you're just it's just like annoying, it's like, okay, let's get it out of here. Too many modifier auras. I actually agree with this too. Too many modifiers, I think, is actually one of the things that makes PvP worse. I think classic PvP feels better because of the simplicity, because there's less modifiers. One of the problems with retail PvP is there's so many modifiers. So when you have no modifiers up, you're doing nothing. When you have all your modifiers up, you're one-shotting. That's problematic, right? Like in classic WoW, like you Kona Cold, great. You could use like Toep in Kona Cold. You'll hit harder. That's good. But there's not like 15 modifiers to throw in your Kona Cold to make it one-shot. So I think that's good. Important for subtle, hard to discover talent interactions. I think these are kind of nice though. Some interactions with other talents or implications aren't immediately clear but are critical to basic performance. I kind of like the subtleties. Like I think this gives the game depth. So I hope they don't go too overboard with this and make it just like incredibly streamlined. Like, oh, just play this and press 1, 2, 3. Like, I think that's bad. I like the subtleties of design where it's like, okay, let's make it so that there's more than meets the eye. You know, let's have it to where it's like, okay, this looks good, but oh wait, if you do this and this, I could actually do this. That's awesome. So I don't know. I hope they don't go too far with this one, to be honest. I kind of like the subtleties. That's what makes it like kind of a cool MMO. But wait, there's more. Gameplay with high actions per minute. This can be physically demanding and uncomfortable. That scares me a little. I think like you have to be careful. So I think some players will be like, oh, that's great. But some players like WoW because of this, that it has high actions per minute and that you can do a lot. Do you guys type 1 in the chat if you like this? Type 2 in the chat if you don't. I'm kind of curious where you guys are at with this one. Okay, so it's kind of split. I'm kind of split on this. Like, I think I'm more on the 2 side of things. This is just catering to the biggest customer segment. It's pure money at the core of it. Well, yeah, I mean, they want to make the most players happy. Yeah, of course. I guess it's hard to say because it's like, well, what do you mean by this? Like, what is actually going to be reduced? I generally like high APM gameplay, but I think high APM can come from different things. Like I said previously, it is my opinion that more simplistic rotations and complexity driven through other areas is actually very fun in PvP, right? Complexity driven through positioning, complexity given through movement, complexity through like just holding cooldowns versus when you're using them. Like in League of Legends, you only have 4 buttons, but it's like when you use that ult at that right time, like the complexity is in the strategy, right? Like you can have very difficult gameplay without high actions per minute. Another example, chess. Obviously chess, very difficult game, very low APM. You can have like these things aren't synonymous. So high APM doesn't mean hard. So in that sense, it's like if you can have lower actions per minute and still have it very strategic and demanding in a different way, like mentally demanding, I think that's good. I think what we have to be careful of is just dumbing down the game and making it just too simplistic. Because I think there's a massive amount of people that like the complexity. I think it's I think it's a good direction. I just think that it's a fine line to walk and you don't want to go too far. I think that's kind of what I'm feeling, right? I think I like the direction they're headed. It's just like careful, right? Careful. Specs with a litany of ability buttons makes it hard to set keybinds or keep track of them in combat. I mean, that's fair, but like, yeah. I mean, I kind of want to hop on the alpha now. Approachability and mastering WoW. We have spoken with players and enjoying the mastering that many challenges WoW presents. They carefully review logs, simulations, videos, and guides. They memorize complex action priorities and train their attention and perform rotations perfectly while handling encounters. They're often knowledge gurus upon whom their communities are built, offering guidance and tips for other players and sharing their encounter strategies to help defeat bosses. Kind of like when we uploaded the 99 parse on Mythic, some Mythic bosses at the start of War Within, and walking players to, yeah, very familiar with that. We understand that mastering WoW is a crucial part of its appeal. However, becoming an expert WoW player will look a little different after Midnight's approachability changes. Rotations will be learned more quickly. Less time will be spent on customizing add-ons, and you'll experience new types of challenges. So I could see, bro, a lot of pushback from like the Mythic Raiders. Do we have any Mythic Raiders in the chat? I don't know if we do. We might not. Thanks for the prime, man. I could see a lot of Mythic Raiders pushing back on this, and I think they have good reason to. But I think a lot of people will love this. I think overall more people will like this, but I can see pushback from like a lot of higher end players. Looking ahead, alpha. Okay, so I mean, yeah, this is all the alpha stuff, guys. Wow, they're doing a lot of midnight. They're doing a lot of midnight. You know, they are. I'm pretty like, I think this is some good stuff. I think it's good philosophy. I think like overall how I'm feeling is what I said, man. It's a very careful line to tread. You don't want to go too far with it. And if they can pull it off, I think it'll be great. But if they go too far, I think it could just kind of ruin a lot of what people love in the game. So it's like careful. But I think it's kind of what they tried to do in Warlords of Draenor, and they failed in Warlords, in my opinion. It looks like they're trying it again. And they're 0-1 on their track record so far. I would love them to be able to pull off simplicity in a way that is still fun and not removing core abilities that players love, like in Warlords, but making things just more simple but still really fun. That would be awesome. If they can pull it off, massive W. But if it just feels like this is a dumbed down version of what I was playing before, that's kind of how Warlords felt, could be a massive L. Some scary stuff. By the way, all of this should be really good news to you if you're a Classic Andy. If you like Classic, all of this is probably really, really good news for you. By the way, really good. Why is that? Classic's gameplay is a lot more approachable. It's a lot more simplistic. You don't need crazy amounts of add-ons. You don't have too many auras. All of this is making it more like Classic. There's less important, subtle, hard to discover talent interactions. There's less actions per minute. It's more approachable. This is all Classic. Like, if you're a Classic Andy, this is all fantastic news. If you enjoy Classic, this is really good stuff for you. Like, this is going to make retail feel a lot closer to Classic. It still won't feel like Classic, but it'll feel, it's going in that direction, right? So Sod was perfect rotation feel. I liked Sod a lot, yeah. We'll see if we have alpha. Oh, I got a reply here.